Hello there. I am here to show you how to do this little cable knitting project. We're making coffee cozies, and these are great little projects. They're pretty quick, they're pretty small, certainly don't have to be perfect because they're just keeping your coffee warm and your hand not hot. And hopefully it will be a good introduction to cable knitting for people who have always wanted to try it but never kind of gotten up the nerve. That was me for like 20 years, and when I finally got up the nerve, I was so mad at myself that I hadn't tried earlier because it's really a lot easier than it looks. So hopefully this will be helpful. To expedite things here, I went ahead and did the cast on row, 16 stitches, then I knit row 1, or did row 1, which was knit 2, purl 3, knit 6, purl 3, knit 2. Then I did row 2, so 2 in every even row is identical. It's knit 5, purl 6, knit 5. And so here we are now, we're ready for row 3. So the way I've written the pattern, and most of the cable patterns that I've done are similar, every fourth row, and it's always on a front side row, so that makes it every other front side row, every fourth total row, is what I think of as a hard row. That's actually a row that you have to do some cable work on. The other 3 are totally normal, knit, purl, just normal stitches. So you only have to gear up for every fourth row. The way that I think about cable knitting in my mind, especially in this case, the cable that we're going to do today, it's like braiding. So there's no fancy stitches, there's nothing that you've never done before. All it is just changing the order of your knit stitches. One other thing I'll point out is it's easy, hopefully, in this pattern to tell where the cable is because it's these 6 stitches right in the middle that are knit on the front, purled on the back, so it creates this flat, nice patch right in the middle of those 6 stitches are your cable section. And they're bordered on either side by stitches that are always going to be, like looking at the front, they're always purled. So it's a nice little offset. So if you ever get kind of lost or confused, these 6 stitches right here in the middle are your cable. Okay, so you need your yarn. You need to be ready to go to row 3. So read the pattern on the blog to get to this point. And then you need actually 3 needles. It's not as scary as it sounds. You just need one to kind of hold stitches. So you could use, honestly, you could use like a stitch holder. You could use a smaller needle. The extra needle doesn't need to be anything specific other than it just needs to hold stitches for you for like 10 seconds. Okay, so let's get started here. This is row 3. So the first little bit is just the same as the other front side rows. So we're going to knit our first 2. And these little 2 knit stitches on the front, the beginning and end of every row, just make a little border. That's all they are. So knit 2, then we're going to purl 3, 2, 3, and that brings us to our little patch that we talked about here. Here's the 6 stitches. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is, to start our braid, we want to take the far right 2 stitches of your patch and pull them over the middle 2 stitches. So if you think about a braid, it's just taking one piece and pulling it over the middle, taking the other side piece and pulling it over the middle the opposite direction. So the first direction that we're going to go is the 2 far right stitches are going to come over the 2 middle stitches. So to do that, it's really not rocket science. In order to do that, all that you are going to do is grab these 2 stitches that you want to move and put them on your extra needle. Okay? I'm getting weird things happening on my phone. Okay, there we go. So I've got those 2 stitches on this extra needle, and because I want to stretch them in front of the middle 2, I'm going to hold that needle in front of the rest of my work, okay? So then I'm just going to pick up my needles and remain calm. Everything's fine. Pretend nothing is happening here. I'm going to get my yarn back in the back to knit, or I will accidentally add a stitch, and nobody wants that. So you can see here, 2 stitches in front, then the other 2 needles like normal, and I'm just going to keep knitting on the main needle. So what I'm knitting here are actually, out of the 6 stitch little patch, I'm knitting stitches 3 and 4. And then I'm going to come back to my little holder needle and just knit like normal again, stitches 1 and 2. So all you've done is you've pulled stitches 1 and 2 over the top of 3 and 4 and switched their order, okay? So we'll wait. You can kind of tell something's happening. It's really hard to see the pattern. It doesn't get delineated until you've knitted a little bit farther, but you're definitely on your way here. Okay, so then we just finish out the row as kind of normal from 2 rows back. From row 1, from here on out, it's the same to finish this row. So we're just going to knit the 5th and 6th stitches of the 6 stitch patch. Then we're going to purl 2, 3, and then knit our 2 little border knit stitches, and that was our first cable row. Okay, and it just looks kind of crazy, but it's going to come together. It's really cool. So then we're going to turn back over and do our normal backside row, which is knit 5. Knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Purl 6. 1, 2, 3. And when you get to these, now I'm getting to the ones that I just cabled. They're kind of tight. 4, 5, 6. And they're just tight because they're being stretched in places that are uncomfy for them, but they will get over it. And then we knit the last 5. 4, 5. Okay, so now if you recall, well actually first I'll say, now that we have one more row, you can see the cable delineation a little bit. It's starting to come together there. You can see that those 2 stitches that we pulled over have made this nice little kind of raised up line there to make the cable. Okay, so what we just did was row 1, 2, 4, row 4. So now we're ready for row 5. And like I said earlier, every other frontward facing row is just normal. So we're going to do knit 2, purl 3, yep, that's right. Okay, knit 2, purl 3, and then we just knit these 6. We don't do anything weird. We don't move any stitches. Every other front side row is just your standard knitting and purling. One more. Okay, then we purl 3. And knit 2. Okay, then we're going to do one more backside row here. Knit 5. Three, 4, 5. Purl 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we are ready for row 7. And this is the other cable stitching row. So once we finish this row, then basically you just repeat. So there are only 2 rows that are kind of weird and hard, and you just repeat the same 8 rows over and over. So just to kind of give you a little synopsis before we start, for row 3, which was the first cable row, we wanted to yank stitches 1 and 2 here and switch them, put them in the middle, so you leapfrog them over 3 and 4. Now what we want to do is we want to take stitches 5 and 6 and kind of do the opposite. We want to pull them in front of 3 and 4 to complete the braid pattern. Okay, so when we get there, what we're going to do is we're going to put 3 and 4 on the stitch holder and hold that to the back. So let's just get right to it. The first stitches are just normal, so knit 2, purl 3, and that brings us to our 6 stitch little cable area. Stitches 1 and 2 of these 6 are just normal, you just knit them. They had their turn to be cabled 4 rows ago, so you just treat them like normal here. And now you're down to stitches 3, 4, 5, 6 of the cable section. And like I said, again, you want to take the next 2 stitches off the holder. Last time we held the stitch holder needle to the front because we wanted to pull 1 and 2 over 3 and 4. This time we're going to take 3 and 4 and hold them to the back because we want to pull 5 and 6 over 3 and 4. Okay, so that's one big difference, is where you hold the extra stitches on the 2 different cable rows. Okay, so we've got the middle 2 stitches of the 6 stitch section in the back on a holder, and again you're just going to knit stitches 5 and 6, 5 and 6, and then you're going to grab your stitch holder needle and come back to that and just knit what was stitches 3 and 4, but now they've swapped behind and they are now 5 and 6. Okay, if that's confusing, watch it again, watch it in slow-mo, watch it as many times as you need to, or call me. But that's really all there is to it. So we're going to finish this row by purling our 3 and knitting 2. Okay, there we go. And so like I said before, it takes another row or 2 to kind of really see the pattern come through, but it's definitely there. You can see the first part of the braid and the second part of the braid sticking up and over. Okay, so I'm going to do one more back side row just to kind of see, just to kind of show how that starts to look. So I really like this pattern, like I tend to do. I like to make little patterns that are quick and easy, and so you don't get frustrated and leave them laying around and just to be abandoned and never finished. Another nice thing about this is that the yarn type you use doesn't really matter. The needle size you use doesn't really matter. You'll just make a bigger or smaller coffee cozy in terms of width, and then you're just going to knit it for as many inches as you need to get around the mug that you're wanting to make this for. So it's kind of a forgiving pattern in the sense that you can make it kind of however you want to, and it can totally be usable and functional. These are also awesome little gifts. Lots of people drink coffee and tea, and they're thoughtful. They're great for wintertime, for Christmas, and they knit up really, really fast. Okay, so you can see, let's put this down here. You can see your little cable pattern coming along. So there are all kinds of different cable patterns, some more complicated, some actually a little bit simpler than this. But this is a good starting point because it gets you exposure to 2 different directions of moving your stitches. So I just knitted rows 1 through 8, and then like I said, it's just a repeat. You just start back over, and so the next row here, row 9, would be an easy front row, another back row, and then you're back into your first cable row. If you have any questions at all, email me, Instagram me, come to my house, and we'll drink wine and knit together. But I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that you're able to tackle this because it's totally doable, and I'm rooting for you.